In recent days, the world has been watching a storm unfold, one that many experts call the most dangerous geopolitical confrontation in decades. And the question is unavoidable: are we on the edge of a new Cold War, or perhaps something even worse? Relations between Venezuela and the United States, already poisoned by years of sanctions and rhetoric, are now racing toward what looks like a point of no return. The spark? A fiery statement by Donald Trump at a rally in Texas, where he announced an expansion of the U.S. military presence off the coast of Venezuela. Within days, satellite imagery published by Naval News confirmed the arrival of a full American strike group in the Caribbean, led by the nuclear-powered aircraft carrier USS George Washington. Was this a show of strength, or the first step toward open confrontation? In Caracas, the reaction was immediate and furious. Nicolas Maduro declared the U.S. move nothing less than a declaration of a hunt and an attempt at the physical removal of the head of a sovereign state. His words lit a fire in the streets. Tens of thousands of Venezuelans marched with banners screaming, "No to U.S. invasion." State television carried Maduro's fiery address in which he vowed to fight to the last bullet. But then came the real shock. A new player stepped into the battlefield. Not Cuba, not Russia, but China. According to official statements from Beijing, dozens of Chinese naval vessels were dispatched across the globe into the Atlantic to protect trade routes and conduct joint exercises. But was this really about trade routes, or was it about sending the most powerful possible message to Washington? The South China Morning Post reported, citing sources in Beijing, that this was not a symbolic deployment. It was direct military support for Venezuela. And one anonymous senior official put it bluntly: China will not allow investments worth tens of billions of dollars to be threatened by a change of political regime in Caracas. Think about that for a moment. For the first time in modern history, China is signaling it is willing to go to the other side of the planet, not just to protect its own borders, but to defend a foreign ally right in America's backyard. Why Venezuela? The answer is simple, yet explosive: oil. Over the last decade, China has invested more than $70 billion in Venezuela's oil and gas sector, along with telecommunications and infrastructure. To Beijing, Venezuela is not just a partner, it is a fortress of resources and influence in the Western Hemisphere, and Maduro knows how to play the optics. At a recent press conference holding up the latest Huawei smartphone, he declared, "China is our brother, our strategic ally with whom we will build the future." That moment, instantly broadcast on China's CCTV, was presented as a glowing symbol of an unbreakable alliance against U.S. aggression. But is this really about brotherhood, or is it about power? In Washington, alarm bells are ringing. Pentagon officials claim U.S. ships have already begun operations to intercept Venezuelan vessels accused of carrying drugs and weapons. But privately, the mood is more cautious. The Wall Street Journal reported that Trump even considered a naval blockade of Venezuela. Yet his advisors warned him, if even a single Chinese destroyer were harmed, the consequences could be catastrophic. This is the dilemma facing Washington. Do they back down and risk looking weak, or do they risk direct war with China in the Caribbean? The stakes are enormous. Analysts at the Center for Strategic and International Studies argue that China's move signals a dramatic shift from regional defense to global expansion. By choosing Venezuela, China is directly challenging the Monroe Doctrine, the bedrock of U.S. dominance in Latin America for nearly 2 centuries. If Beijing succeeds, it proves that Washington is no longer the unquestioned master of its own hemisphere. So let's ask, is the Monroe Doctrine dead? Meanwhile, the propaganda war is raging. Venezuelan state television plays endless footage of Chinese warships leaving Hainan, presented as proof of brotherly support. In Cuba, Grandma newspaper hailed it as a new era of multilateralism. In Caracas, Defense Minister Vladimir Padrino declared that the joint exercises with China would be a guarantee of peace and security. But is this really peace, or the rehearsal for war? Across Latin America, reactions are mixed and volatile. Colombia's president told Reuters that if Chinese ships enter the Caribbean, the balance of power will change forever. In Brazil, discussions are already underway about providing military bases for U.S. aircraft. Meanwhile, Cuba and Nicaragua have openly offered Venezuela infrastructure for joint defense with China. Peru and Chile, on the other hand, warn that the Chinese presence could militarize the entire region and trigger a dangerous arms race. The conflict is no longer just Venezuela versus the US. It is becoming a test for the entire hemisphere. And what about NATO? Reports from Politico suggest sharp divisions. The UK and Poland side firmly with the US, insisting on a collective response if China dares to attack. But Germany and France? They see it differently. A German foreign ministry source bluntly called fighting China over Venezuela madness. France floated the idea of launching a diplomatic mission to mediate between Washington and Beijing. So here's the question. If NATO itself can't agree, can the West present a united front? Markets, of course, are already reacting. Oil prices are spiking. Bloomberg analysts warn that investors are bracing for a conflict that could paralyze global oil supply. Foreign Affairs magazine summed it up with chilling words. We are witnessing the beginning of a new Cold War, but with its hotspot in the Western Hemisphere. The parallels are obvious. In 1962, it was Soviet missiles in Cuba. Today, it is Chinese warships in Venezuela. The world held its breath then, and it is holding its breath now. The Pentagon has put bases in Puerto Rico and Miami on high alert. Strategic B-52 bombers have been spotted over the Caribbean. And soon, joint Chinese-Venezuelan naval exercises are expected to begin, a rehearsal of coordinated military action under crisis conditions. So the ultimate question is clear. Will the United States actually risk a direct clash with China, right in its own backyard? Trump's rhetoric is as fiery as ever. On the campaign trail, he repeats the same message. We will not allow China to interfere in our region. Venezuela will be free. The words sound strong, but behind them lies a terrifying dilemma. Can America enforce its will without plunging the world into disaster? The truth is, no one knows. What we are witnessing is the birth of a new stage in global power politics, one where every miscalculation could lead not just to conflict, but to catastrophe. And so we return to the question that hangs in the air, unanswered. Is Venezuela about to become the spark that ignites the first direct clash between China and the United States? Or, to put it another way, are we watching history repeat itself, only this time with even higher stakes? The world waits, the world fears, and the world wonders.